Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Accountants Therapy MTD together with software. Today, we are joined with Glasscubes, which is a fantastic bit of kit. Looking forward to hearing all about that. Now, this webinar is being recorded. A recording will be sent out via the Eventbrite link if you signed up. Alternatively, it will be available on YouTube and we will post it onto socials. As usual, please keep the questions in the Q&A box if you can. That makes our lives on the panel a lot easier. We can filter through the questions and make sure we pick up them as we need to. The chat box is open, so get your emojis in as quick as you can. This is going to be a really good one, a great way to end a Friday. So thank you very much, Glasscubes, for joining us, and I will pass over to Robin now.
Hello, everybody. There's not much really for me to say other than to welcome Craig and Kevin from Glass Cubes. Perhaps you could start us off by explaining what is Glass Cubes.
I'll take this away.
Yeah.
Just to kick off, thanks very much for inviting us, guys. My name's Kevin. I'm the head of customer success for Glasscubes and work very closely with clients and are becoming the voice of their customer to our product team. So I'm involved in product development as well. So Glasscubes, we basically help firms gather client information more efficiently from their clients. By that, I mean we solve the problem that most firms experience across most service lines, and that is getting information from their clients in a timely manner. Because, of course, a lot of what firms do is deadline driven, whether it be payroll, year-end accounts, or self-assessment, and certainly with MTD. So we started that journey as a client portal solution. So a number of you may be familiar with client portals. They're provided by a lot of practice management systems, and typically they are used to exchange information securely with clients. They have other features in there, such as document approval typically. But early on in that journey to try and develop a modern portal for the accountancy market, we discovered fairly quickly that clients dislike client portals. Fundamentally, one of the biggest barrier to getting adoption with a client portal is the fact that clients have to remember where to go and log in. They then have to remember usernames and passwords. And that small barrier means that the vast majority of clients typically revert to email. The problem with email, of course, is that it has limitations as far as kind of the size of files that can be sent, the quantity of files, the security aspect, the GDPR implications. So we basically evolved our solution to become a low friction way of getting information from clients without the need for a typical client portal environment. And that's something that we'd like to touch on, but because today is very MTD focused, I'd like to sort of start talking about our journey into MTD. So we first started our development roadmap about 18 months ago. We were a little bit later to the party than some of the other software providers. But we, at that time, didn't know whether we could actually add value to the process. So we went and spoke to lots and lots of firms, all our clients effectively, asking what their strategy or approach would be to MTD. And I was going to say almost all had the same approach on talking to them. They really wanted to encourage their clients to adopt some form of bookkeeping software because, of course, that's ideal. That gets a client organized. It gives the firms often access to the data through the cloud, which makes things very convenient. And for those clients that wouldn't use bookkeeping software or don't use bookkeeping software, then they kind of accepted that the other option would be if a client threw their hands up in the air and said, look, I can't do this, that they would offer some form of paid for bookkeeping service. And that was kind of the de facto approach across all of these firms. So we are not a practice management system. We weren't looking to develop another QuickBooks or Xero or Free Agent. What we were looking at is there any value that we can do in our core approach, which is about helping clients gather their clients' information in a timely manner. And we sort of started talking about kind of some of the challenges with the approaches that they currently had chosen. So software as an example, one of the problems with bookkeeping software is that there is a certain amount of effort involved in having to learn a new piece of software. Even software that's very intuitive and simple to use, there is still an investment in time in getting the software configured, getting it set up, understanding how it all works. And then once you've been through that process, actually doing the day-to-day bookkeeping. And although the first tranche of people coming into MTD are the high income earners, over 50,000 income level, who are most likely to already have adopted bookkeeping software because they have the more complex bookkeeping needs, you would think. A lot of firms that were in the early stages of the HMRC's beta testing discovered that when they went to their clients to try and encourage them to adopt bookkeeping software, they had a lot of resistance to that, and surprisingly, a lot of resistance to that. And what they realized is that if clients are currently using bookkeeping software or spreadsheets or some other way of bookkeeping that's not recognized by HMRC, then getting them to transition into another platform is a big ask. There's also an expense to these new software, although it's not substantial, I've got to say. But there was another element that came out when we were talking to firms, and that is that firms were becoming a bit risk adverse to recommending software to their clients for two reasons. One, that they didn't want to become the software support partner for that piece of software. The danger they felt was that if they were recommending software to their clients, then they would be naturally the first port of call for clients with questions about configuration, setup, or how to do certain elements of the platform. And the other risk that they perceived was that a lot of these software bookkeeping platforms that are recognized by HMRC to make submissions quarterly also allow them to make the final declaration submission. And they were concerned that they were effectively giving their clients all of the tools required to bypass them, and they were struggling to work out where they were going to add their value. Then on the flip side, for those clients that they offer a paid-for bookkeeping service, firstly, one of the challenges for the client is going to be the expense of that, because that's not going to be free, we assume. So the client's going to have to spend money on that, and as the threshold of income lowers in future years for HMRC, they were concerned that that is not a scalable approach for the lower income level, and even perhaps at the higher. So that was one of the issues. But for the main problem for the firm was the fact that if they're doing bookkeeping for MTD, all of a sudden, unlike self-assessment, where they're just chasing their clients annually for information against a deadline, they're all of a sudden going to have to be doing that quarterly. And they were concerned that even if they were charging clients, that it wouldn't be a cost-effective service. They were concerned they were going to sort of get wrapped up in knots with the admin side of things. So when we looked at all of this information, I thought, well, how can we help support our clients? We realized that actually the easiest method of supporting a client that isn't prepared to use bookkeeping software themselves, when I say that, I'm kind of thinking of my parents that are in their 80s, that are very comfortable sending email, in fact, probably a bit too comfortable sometimes. My dad loves a spreadsheet for his scores, team scores and stuff, so he can work his way around a spreadsheet. But if I was to ask them to go out and learn Xero, it would be a non-starter. So we were kind of looking at the least digitally savvy type of client and what would work for them. And the bridging software option seems like the obvious approach to sort of fill this gap. Most people, so everybody that's in MTD will have to accept they have to keep digital records of some sort. The very easiest, simplest method to do that is just by entering lines onto a spreadsheet. And then what we need to do is come up with a way of making that spreadsheet super simple, and also make the process of getting the information to HMRC as simple and intuitive as possible, so that clients don't require any kind of training. They can just pick up the tool and run with it. So that's how we came up with our tool, which is called MTD Assist. It focuses purely on the quarterly submission. So it's a tool that is only available through accounting firms. The accounting firm invites the client to join the tool, and there are a couple of options available. So what I've got today to show you is I've got a series of screenshots which is going to show you the full process of inviting a client to join the tool, through to the client experience of accepting that invitation, signing up with HMRC and connecting our tool to theirs, and then all the way through to the first submission. As far as the way the system is billed, the cost of the system, there is no cost to the firm themselves, but there is a small cost to the actual end user client tool. And that tool can either be billed directly by us, so our client firms don't need to get involved in billing individual clients. It's an annual fee of £36 plus VAT for the tax year, and that's inclusive of multiple income streams. It's not income stream, it's user specific. If, however, our client is prepared to centralize billing, so they're going to either absorb the fee or pass the fee on to their client themselves, then we discount that fee to £24 plus VAT per annum. And then the final thing to talk about is kind of making sure that we have developed a tool that actually adds value to our clients, as well as theirs. So, you know, one of the worries was the fact that by providing software that could make sort of final declarations as well, you're kind of removing the value aspect. But we wanted to add value potentially into the quarterly submissions, but keep the client responsible for hitting deadlines, which is what a lot of firms were concerned that they were going to get wrapped up in, chasing clients for information, hitting that deadline. But if you make the client responsible for hitting the deadline, and you give the client, or you have the option to review those submissions prior to going to HMRC, you can be kept in the loop and therefore add value. Or for clients that are 100% confident and they feel that they can do the submissions themselves, then we would also give the option for clients to do that directly. So if I can share my screen, Tom or Robin, can I just do that through this panel?
Yes, you should be able to just
Yeah, got you. Sorry.
It sounds like you're really trying to achieve exactly what I'm trying to achieve with my clients, with giving them the responsibility over the quarterly updates. Essentially, it's the route that I've taken.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's
exactly seeing this.
Sorry. Am I sharing too much now?
No, we've got it.
No, we're good.
Okay, I'm just trying to get your panel out of the way. Sorry. Cool. So, what I should start off by saying is Glasscubes itself is a hub of online workspaces. A workspace is a client area, and it can be specific to a particular use case or service line. What I'm showing you here is an example of a client workspace, and one of these spaces is ring-fenced. You invite internal users to join the space. So anybody on the team that might support this client and wants visibility over kind of communication or submissions, you would give access to this workspace. It's entirely permission control. It's cloud-based, so you can access it from anywhere that's got a browser, and it's super secure. Everything in it's encrypted. So once you've created a client space like this MTD client workspace, which takes about 10 seconds, the first option you're given is to decide, is this the type of client that you're happy to be self-serve, or are you gonna, or do you want to review the submissions before they get sent to HMRC? A number of firms believe that there's going to be a kind of a bit of a transition, a learning period for clients where the chances are that they will have a number of clients that say, could you please review my first submission or even the first couple of quarters? But because these submissions on bridging software are cumulative and all you're doing is you're adding to the same records that you've recorded the previous quarter and submitting them all each quarter, they feel that their clients are going to get into the flow. It's going to become easier and easier. And at some point, they'll be comfortable to do direct submissions themselves. So you can switch in between these things. So that's the first choice. Is it a direct submission or am I going to review it? The next element to inviting a client, you need their name, email address, and national insurance number, and then you send the invitation. The workspace now changes into kind of a waiting for client to approve their invitation, but your job is done. It's all now with the client to do their part of the process. The client will receive a notification from the system. It will be branded to your firm, so it'll have your logo. It's personalized to your client from the person sending it. And it's basically saying you've been invited to join MTD Assist, which is the client-facing tool. And they click the green button to get started. They're now launched onto a web page where they're asked for their mobile number as part of the setup. Again, this is branded to your firm. There's no references to Glasscubes, so it's kind of a white labeled solution, if you like. The mobile number that you've just added gets sent a verification code. You enter that code here. And then you're basically connected to MTD Assist. The next step, or the final step really, is getting yourself connected to HMRC. To do that, a client will need to have a government gateway portal account. They will also need to be signed up for MTD. If either of those things aren't true, then they would click the no button and they would be redirected to a step-by-step help article which talks them through the process of doing both or either of those things. So what we're trying to do is keep the kind of the administrative aspect of getting a client signed up to MTD away from the firm themselves. And the reports we've had back is that firms are telling us that they've had clients that they've struggled to get them to sign using an online signing tool, like a DocuSign type product, but they've worked their way through this process simply and logically. So let's assume they have now got their government gateway portal, they're signed up for MTD, they click the yes button. They're now getting redirected to HMRC site where they've been asked to give authorization that with the software to make submissions through. They click continue. They'll now need to sign into their government gateway portal. And the final step is just clicking the green give permission button. Once they've done that, they're redirected back into MTD Assist. We're now connected to HMRC, so we now know the income streams that HMRC or are known to HMRC, and we're going to pull those through one by one. Each one, we're going to ask the client the same question. So in this example, this is a UK property. And we're going to ask them, have you got an income of over or under 90,000 for this income stream? And the reason we ask that is because when they select it and download the digital record, the template that they download is customized to that particular income type and also the income level and the type of records that they need to keep. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. They click next, and if they have multiple income streams, each one's going to occur after another. And when they get through them, they're going to then come back to the dashboard. So at this stage, the dashboard's just telling them, hey, you've done everything, you're all set up. Next thing you need to worry about is when you get a reminder from the system, which will come a couple of weeks prior to the first reminder due date, the first submission due date. But before they do that, they're going to see the digital record that they downloaded. I'm just going to leave that. So this is an example of a digital record for UK property for somebody that has an income of over 90,000. So in this example, they're expected to keep full digital records. The template itself is a locked down template. We don't want people changing or corrupting the template. And part of HMRC's ruling is that you can't just have a summary sheet like this and update figures. You need to have the digital records behind them. So this sheet itself can't be adjusted. These figures here are fed through from either the income or expenses spreadsheet. On the income sheet, in this example, I've given some various different UK properties and sort of income coming from them. On the expenses sheet, you would list out the individual expenses through the quarter and go into each one, selecting from the predetermined categories from HMRC. Again, all these figures are then summarised onto the summary sheet, and this spreadsheet is just saved on their local machine. And this would be the same spreadsheet they use for the entire tax year. So once they get the reminder from the system, then they're going to jump back in. They'll receive one of the notifications that's branded from your firm again. They'll click on the reminder. It will bring them back to the dashboard, which will change slightly, just explaining that, now they've got a submission due. In this example, there's a couple of different income streams. The way they would make the submission is by clicking on the Start Now button, going to their digital record. Press the Start Now button. They would bring up the upload panel. They'd then go to their digital record and drag and drop it here or upload it to this section. And when they upload it, it's going to give a summary of basically what was on the expense sheet. Now, at this stage, they cannot edit the information that's been submitted through our software. They're not allowed to. Again, that's HMRC's regulation. They need to make an amendment at this stage. They would edit the digital record and re-upload it. When they're happy with the upload, if they are a direct submission client, they would click this button, which will be submit to HMRC directly. In this example, this is one where the agent is going to review their submission. So they would click it here. It would then go and send a notification through Glasscubes to the agent, and the agent will now have the option to engage with the client. So as soon as clients are connected through MTD Assist, they have access to a private messenger, which is a messaging system, very much like kind of a WhatsApp type scenario where it's all date time stamped, and you can go backwards and forwards. You can transfer files backwards and forwards on it. But the key thing here is that the agent now has access to the original digital record that was uploaded by the client. He's in communication via the private messenger, which keeps it out of email, and it keeps it all contained within the tool so that either party can refer back to it if they need to reference it. It also means that anybody in the team that is responsible for supporting this client, if there's more people in the firm that look after the clients, anybody can jump in at this point and engage with the client. And anybody else in the team has access to that communication.
Can I ask a question? Sorry. So when that goes to the accountant, is it possible for the accountant to amend the digital record and re-upload
It is
themselves? They don't have to ping back the amendments that they want the client to make to
no, in
re-upload themselves.
fact, that's a good point. Not only can they amend the record, but they can actually bypass the client entirely if they need to and make the submission on behalf of the client.
Wonderful.
Read our minds.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's assume now that the both parties are happy with the submission. The agent now releases that or submits it to HMRC. This record now becomes a digital record, which is an archived record. Either party can download the original digital record in a read-only format from the download here. And that's it, really. Within the workspace now, this is back to the original workspace, the original screen we're on. This is the internal view, and this is now showing, giving kind of a status update to the agent. This is where they would access the private messenger. They can access any prior submissions by clicking on a line entry. And it's pretty much as simple as that. Don't really want to make it sound overly complex. I don't know if we have any questions at the moment.
Yeah, we've got two questions in. First one from Mark is it always the client's HMRC login that's used? So when they set that up, it was the client's government gateway details. that went into the system. Is that always the case? Is there ever an agent login side of things?
I'm sorry, Robin. As soon as you started speaking, I froze.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
A second.
Yeah.
So a question from Mark, is it always the client's HMRC login that's used?
No, not always. So if the agent is doing submissions all on behalf of the client, so the two options that I talked about initially, clients doing it direct, yes, needs to be the client login. If the agent is doing a review, then although the client is still logging into the platform and making the submissions via there, it's actually the agent's details that we're using to make the submission.
Okay, thank you very much. And then a question from Louise on the template. Can that template be altered at all by the agent and then show the system how to map to the different categories in terms of the income and expenses tab, or is that always fixed?
So depending on the use case, so the example I showed you, which is where clients use our digital record for the bookkeeping, that's all locked down because that meets all of HMRC's requirements. But we also have another type of digital record for those people that have their own bookkeeping systems that aren't recognized by HMRC, where they can do an export in a CSV format, or where they already keep their bookkeeping on a spreadsheet anyway. So in both of those examples, we have a summary sheet, which they then map their sheets or link their sheets effectively to ours in order to
So
make
it is totally possible to use your own spreadsheet with this system as well.
100%, and it doesn't matter what format it's in, where the data is, it can all be mapped across.
Okay, thank you very much.
I like the look of this, guys. It's good. I mean, I'm probably a bit more interested actually in the automation that you spoke of client information collection. So if, let's say, my client has got two sources of income, property and self-employment, what is the process for Glasscubes to have that client receive a reminder? Is it all totally automated? I set up the sources, an email gets pinged out on the first day of the deadline. How does that all work?
So we're talking about the difference between a self-assessment and an MTD client now.
No, so for an
The
MTD
automation.
client, the automation, they're a sole trader and a landlord. How do they get notified by Glasscubes to say, right, I need you to complete this information in a spreadsheet?
Okay, so they will be notified 2 weeks prior to the deadline that the notification is due, the submission is due. That will be received by email, and then they send their update through that email. As they click on the email, they'll go back to their dashboard and they'll make the update that way. Is that what you?
Yeah, and there are two subsequent reminders in there as well, Tom. There's that will go periodically. So I'm not exactly sure the frequency, but say 10 days prior and then 5 days prior as well. There's a further chase. So there's a constant reminding up until the gap for the filing.
And is there any mechanism for an auto file if the client has put some data into the bridging software?
There is no automating filing because, of course, the actual digital record is kept separate to the software itself. Right, so it's not presented to the platform until the submission is due. One of the things that we were very by design, one of the things that we wanted to do when we built MTD Assist is we didn't want to include any unnecessary bells and whistles. We wanted everything to be super, super simple and literally cut away everything that wasn't required just to meet the HMRC's quarterly obligations. Because, we know the bookkeeping software, for example, has got a lot of stuff in it, a lot of stuff that people may not actually need. It reminds me a little bit of using Microsoft. Well, look at Excel, looking at Excel as a product. I use maybe 5% of the features in there. So we just wanted to keep it really light and basic so it didn't overwhelm or confuse people.
Nice to see that approach. I think, as you said, it's kind of the opposite to everybody else, isn't it? Who are trying to add extra features continually to everything. You're trying to just make it as simple as possible, which definitely benefits some clients, doesn't it?
So I mentioned sort of at the beginning that our core focus is all around sort of gathering client information. And that's where we do add the bells and whistles. So this doesn't apply to all of our product set. MTD Assist, as I said, we're really catering for those people that don't want to use bookkeeping software for whatever reason that might be. They don't want to pay for that service through their firm, for the firm they work with, but they know they've got to meet the obligation. So we're just giving the simplest, least onerous way of doing that. But then our core product, which is much more around the firm and gathering information in a timely manner, is where we're doing some really exciting things with AI and automation. So maybe, unless you have other questions on the MTD side, I'll happily pass over to Craig.
I've got a couple more, but I definitely want to know more about the roadmap. So MTD, I assume Glasscubes, you've got a client dashboard where I could look in and see where the stages are. I know on your website, that really good marketing video you've done about collecting all information, you've got like a traffic light system for information. Is that the same with MTD to see where someone is in that process, where a client is, if they...
Absolutely. So we have real-time dashboards, which allow you to, we call them portfolios, but they allow you to group clients together. You know, some firms might want to see all of their clients in that report. Others may just want to see an office or a team of clients. It allows you to group clients together, and you work from that real-time report. Any of the information you need is in front of you. You can filter it all so that you're getting to exactly the clients that you're most interested in sort of reviewing.
That's brilliant. I think, yeah, I mean, it's annoying for me because I want to ask you loads of questions about your MTD product, but you kind of have just covered everything off. Like it doesn't need bells and whistles. It does the job. It meets the quarter update filing requirement, and that is it. That's what you need, isn't it?
You know, honestly, I don't want to sort of bloat it to something it isn't. It's supposed to be that simple. It's just supposed to be a simple tool that gets that job done without any bells and whistles. Yeah.
I really thought you were about to say click of a button then. I was waiting for it to come.
And at a price point also that's, you know, palatable as well compared to bookkeeping option as well. That's the other consideration.
Yeah, that's very good. So yeah, Craig, thank you, Kevin. Do you want to kick us off on your roadmap and things ahead?
Yeah, so let's talk about the core product then, really, I suppose. So which touches MTD as well. So our information request tool is the core focus of Glasscubes to help firms request and gather client information. So let me take the screen share here and I'll walk you through that.
Perfect.
Has that come through to you guys okay?
Just loading up for me.
Yeah, it's just loading for me as well. Here we go.
Got it now.
Yeah, got it. Great. So obviously we'll stay with the tax service line, but obviously we've spoken about MTD, and that's obviously the need that we were talking about. But outside of that, you've got these tranches coming in, and there's still clients that, you know, won't fall into MTD, but you still have this annual self-assessment cycle of workload to also still manage. So our information request tool can add value to that process, as well as dropping into MTD. So let's talk about the wider self-assessment side of things. Typically, you know, you've got a process there where, you know, around April time, you're sending out letters to call for information. So what we're looking at, you basically, again, have the area created where you've got clients in the tool. So you've got your clients down the left-hand side. And we would look to align with your process here. So we would build a request template to be sent out, and this is sometimes going on volume. You might have, you know, numbers of people that you're sending your letters out to. So we would build a template that reflects and aligns with your process. You come up with the messaging for this. Some firms like to send a checklist out with that letter. Sometimes they're bespoke checklists. Sometimes they're standard checklists that are asking for the client to consider if they've done anything in the year. And then once we build that, this would be going out en masse to several of your clients. So you drop in lots of email addresses into here, and your standard letter template would be baked into this. And then, unlike what typically happens at the moment, where when you send requests for information out, they are either emailed messages or postal messages that land, they're moment in time messages that land at that moment, and nothing else happens. Well, we want to automate the process associated with getting that client response back. So all of our information requests give you the opportunity to put an ideal due date that you would ideally like these records back by. So obviously the self-assessment workload is always a tail-ended process in the year typically. So as a guide to your clients in this example, we'd ideally like the records back by the end of October. That would be great if that happened. And we're also going to then bake into the back end of these requests, though, a sequence of automation and reminding pull that's going to be baked into the requests and is going to be working away in the background for you constantly so that you're not having to put that manual time and effort into this as much as you do today, probably. Into these messages, we can also add some custom messages to it. So that allows us to add some time of year sentiment and some persuasive language. And some firms introduce early adoption offers or early receipt offers. Again, we can reiterate those in these messages and reconfirm them. And then that gets pushed out to the clients en masse. And you will end up with the report in front of you that will then give you that real-time status dashboard as to the progress that's being made against this information gathering that you're doing. So the information requests have now gone out. Just to show the client experience in this, the client will receive the email from you into their inbox. It will be, again, branded to your firm with your logo against it, and it'll be Dear Mr. Client, and your letter that you currently send out or message from your template will appear for them. And then they've got the ability to then go in to view the information request. Again, at this point, we're trying to make it as simple as possible for people to follow the process. So again, it's really clear call to action, what they're having to follow here and adopt. And again, what we're here is if this particular example is referring to the checklist, they can access it. And then typically what comes back is the client then eventually will send you back their submission. And that quite often is just a text reply that you get back from the client. And then what they'll be doing is attaching a bunch of documents here that you typically get back. And, it'll be spreadsheets, it'll be P60s, it'll be PDFs, bank statements. You get a whole raft of information attached there and sent back. And the client will get a confirmation note that they've returned their submission to you. So on the internal side of the information request, it's now gone from a delivered status, sent out, and it's now come back into this submitted status. Also, what we will provide as well is an insight if the client has looked at the information request and they've seen it. We'll put a date stamp in there so they've seen their call for tax information. And this request is now in the submitted status. So at this point in time, what we will do is we will automatically break that thread of automation and reminding. We're not going to chase clients unnecessarily if, as far as they're concerned, they've sent the information in and you haven't got to update a flag and remember to do that. It'll happen automatically. The information request comes in, and then typically what will happen is you will review that information. And then in reality, what you'll probably do is want to raise a query, or you'll go and ask for some further information. So you raise a query in the container on the tool, in the messenger, and then you add that, and it will send a note back to the client and send them an email notification in that regard. And what we've now done is opened the submission status back up to what's called in progress. So because you've given the ball back to the client again now, we're going to open back up that thread of automation in the background and make sure you get a client response from your call for further information. So the tool has always got a pull on any time you request information from the client. It's doing what it can to get you an earlier response from that client so you can move that workload forward. And the outcome that drives from our clients, what they've seen is they report 40, 50, 60% uplifts in client responses coming back through this tool because it's got that constant pull working in the way in the background for them. And that's the type of outcome that they're seeing, because typically it's a kind of a stop-start process. You do some, then you work away, you get distracted, then you check what you've got, and then you're doing a round of reminding, and then the process continues. Whereas this is constantly automatically working away in the background, pulling that information into you. So that's the first outcome the tool delivers. And then as you see, you've got the insight into the flow of information. And as we can see here, we've got items coming back in. So the second part that the tool now does is then helps you with the second part of your journey. So what happens once you've got the information coming in is, and as I spoke about earlier, you typically get a response coming in from the client, and this can come in a variety of different formats to you. So you get a typical email response saying, okay, Tom, you've been chasing me for my information. Here it is. And you get the email coming in, and there'll be some narrative in that email that you need to take a note of for part of the information you need. and then they'll send a bunch of records back. And this could be several different attachments. So in this particular example, the client has returned a tax return checklist, and I think what they've done is they've sent it back and they've put some pen on it with last year's information, this year's information against it. So they've actually filled in a bit of a checklist there. They've also sent some bank transactions through here, which are just pages of transactions that you've got to go and sift through and pull out necessary information. And they've also sent in their P60. And like I said, there's some narrative in the information request there in the email. So what we're now able to do is jump onto the AI Assist feature here, and we can run prompts against the gathered data. So what we're now going to do is run a prompt against that collected data here. And this particular one is basically going to interrogate the email and the attachments that we've received. And this one is basically saying, in line with the SA 100 field criteria, give me an insight into what information I've received, what information might be missing. And this particular prompt is also going a stage further and saying, are there any advisory tips you can give me to maybe talk to this client about? So in a few seconds, what it's doing is it's looking at the received data that we've received and all those attachments. And then it's going to start sharing me with this neat summary that effectively then starts off the working paper that you start to prepare the tax return. So again, what this is doing is we're just looking at the next part of the process of what takes time, the information that coming into you in a fairly unstructured way, and we're trying to then save you time in summarizing that information and presenting to you in a neat format. So it's gone off, and it's, these could be shorter prompts, or this one's got a little bit of a lengthier one with the suggestions of advisory that you can tap into. But over to the left-hand side here, now what we've got is a clean list of information that it's gathered in line with the SA 100, and it's started to give me insights into where it's got that information from. And again, I can go to the data source, and it will tell me where it's pulled that data from, and I can verify it with a check where it's pulling the data out of. So that's saving firms a lot of time. And then also you can also download that summary out of the browser and download that to start your working paper off. So that's saving a lot of time with analyzing gathered records. Other things that the AI can assist with, because this goes beyond just the overall container. You might have a bank statement, for example, which is a common bit of information that you might be requesting from a client. And often you receive these in a PDF format. So the bank statement has come in a PDF, and therefore, it's not very usable. So what you might want to be able to do is go to the AI Assist now and say, could you extract that data into a table format so I can manipulate the bank statement or do something with it? You can also do comparisons against documents. So again, another example with the information request is if we started the information request off and we had the previous year's aid memoir or tax information in here, then when we ran the AI SIPS prompt, we could say, based on last year's tax return, you shared this information with us. This year, you've sent me this, and we can do some gap analysis with the AI on that specific person's tax return from the previous year. So some insights there. And then finally, just to talk about the visibility side of things, obviously, you've got everything on one neat report now. So rather than trying to stay on track of your workload, you've got a very simple dashboard here to understand exactly where the status of that broader information gathering is going. And we can clearly see the status of the workload. The client information is going to go backwards and forwards in the queries. We present that in one place. So you can see client information, queries, your information, and we present that really clearly to the client. So it's all in one place. And of course, what that then means is we've got the information centrally. So if you're working in a small team or a big team, let's say a member of that team is off or away, we're in the busy period, I can jump onto some workload that's come in or some previous work we've been working on with that client, and I can see all the correspondence, what's going on. And that's, I might not be able to see my colleague's email, or I might not have the visibility over certain things. So we're informed and we can keep workload moving forward. And this filter, can give you a neat summary of your work, how you're looking to get the workload into the verified status, which means that's now good to go and prepare the tax return. So we can clearly see against the volume of work, how much we've done, how much we've got that's come in that we need to work on. Anything that's overdue, I can call up a list of offenders. We know we've been reminding consistently throughout the year here, but maybe we need another strategy for these guys because these are the the late ones in the year that we know we've been reminding, and we might need to call them up and have a conversation with them. But we'll serve that information up and serve it up to you. So that kind of concludes the reporting side of it. Also in the tool, you've got the ability here to finish the process off. You can put documents into the information gathering tool. So you can put the SA100 back in, and then you can go out for signature request approval and get the tool approved. So we've got electronic approval, signature request approval in here as well. And again, that's another point of failure moment when we're in January trying to get the tax returns approved. So that'll be deadline driven. It'll go out with a deadline on it, and it'll be chasing hard against that deadline so that you can meet it. Just coming back to the information request, we spoke very specifically there about a particular type of request for the SA100 work. But this information request tool is designed to gather any type of information that you need to collect from a client. So in that scenario, the information request component is very flexible. So you've got the ability just to go out and call for specific items if you want, and you can build a list of information here, and you can go and get itemized information back. Alternatively, we can build out some templates as well. So we might have, for example, a template in here for final declaration or quarterly submissions if you're doing the bookkeeping. And you can build a list of information that you might call for. And again, when we're sending the information requests out to the recipients, we'll put an information. This is just like putting an email together, but unlike your email, what we'll be looking to do is put a due date against it. And we'll be transacting over a shorter period of time with reminders, because, it won't be a yearly cycle. It'll be, I need the final declaration information in now. We're in the final quarter. So you can bake into it always reminders. We can also send those to SMS as well as to client reminder. And in that scenario, you can then see the progress. So you will send an information request out to the client. It will have a due date on it. We can see if the client's viewed it. It will pre-remind against the due date. So 7 days prior to the due date, it will say, don't forget, you owe information in 7 days. 2 days prior to that due date, again, another fire will go if we haven't seen the documentation. So the tool is always doing its best effort to get you records on time automatically. And you also know that if they don't arrive, we're also chasing at the back end as well. So that is what's driving the output of getting client responses a lot sooner, and making sure that you can carry out the actions that you do, and you're not wasting time chasing for records unnecessarily. And the use cases are across the firm. So there's other elements of this, but from final declaration to other aspects of information gathering. And taking sort of back into MTD, if you did decide that you were doing the bookkeeping yourselves, but you need to get records in, you could use the information request tool to set up recurring requests. So every quarter, you could be going out and building a schedule to go and call for the records for MTD. That will have a due date against it, which you can specify. It will be pre-reminding against that due date, and it'll also be chasing for late submissions every quarter. So once you set the recurring request feature up, you won't actually even be setting up the requests. They'll just be going out every quarter automatically with deadline dates against them, pre-reminding and chasing. And where you've got a list of items, just to show you that side of things, same as before with the back and forth scenarios, you'll have items coming in from the client. You can actually go in and have inline discussions on specific items and have queries against particular items, rather than just the whole submission. So they're itemized. These items, we've had a backwards and forwards discussion now, but we're verified. This item's come back in. And again, we just need to either go back with a query or mark it up as verified. And the fifth item here has actually been delegated. It's for a slightly different use case, but that's someone else is going to supply me with that item, and it'll tell me who it's been referred on to send me that information. So yeah, the information gathering tool, everything that we do there is core about making requests, getting early adoption, getting early responses coming back into you, reducing the time and effort that you spend and waste having to do that chase, and less work will be piling up, and you will be able to move workload forward in a more timely manner.
Thank you, Craig. I was watching that AI assist, and I'm sure I could feel accountants and tax advisors across the country going, oh my Lord. I mean, that was incredible how quick it exported all that information. How does that tie in with, let's say we do the quarter updates throughout the year, and then we send a checklist to the client? can that AI assist pull all of the core information together and almost draft queries to the client? Like, what should I be asking the client? You know, for disallowables, maybe. Note for in the previous year they disallowed for telephone. Does it flag those sorts of things?
It can do. So you can
Yeah.
absolutely ask the AI assist to draft a response to the client based on the information that's been submitted. I mean, one of the developments that we have in the pipeline at the moment, so, the one that we're probably most excited about, is specifically for the personal tax self-assessment line, or final declaration for that matter. And it's around taking what we currently do with the AI tool, but making it completely bespoke to triaging the information that's requested from clients for personal tax. The way that would work is we are often asked to distribute aide memoirs from previous tax years to clients, to remind them of kind of what type of information they need to supply. And we use that document to create a gap analysis between the information they've supplied us and the information that's been requested through the aide memoir. And we immediately scan the information we've received. We mark what's been submitted and what has yet to be submitted, or what we can't find reference to. And the system will automatically draft the message that you were describing, Tom, taking the information that it's missing or that it wants confirmation on, and presenting that reply to the agent and allow them to release it. So there's a human in the loop in that it doesn't automatically send that message, although in the future it potentially could do. And the agent's given the option to edit it. Now that development we've been working on that for some time, and we are due to be launching that at the beginning of this coming tax year. So in time for April.
Oh, cool.
So we're really excited about that.
You've got a lot of development in the line then.
On that AI assist tool as well, a question on foreign currency. So often we're going to have clients sending us foreign currency details, etc., statements that are not in English. Can the AI assist, does it automatically think that it's going to be in pounds? Does it automatically convert for us? Does it just flag it to us? How does it deal with foreign currency?
Okay, so bear in mind that we're not a kind of a tax preparation tool, in that we don't actually take those figures and use them in calculations. We're not looking to convert currencies, but if it sees a foreign currency, it will recognize that it's a foreign currency and extract it as that currency. We then present that information to you in an organized manner, and then what you do with that information is kind of the next bit. Yeah.
Thank you. That's probably the answer I was expecting. Thank you.
Okay.
Good. I'd like to know a bit more about your pricing, if you've got some information on pricing. How does the pricing work? So particularly interesting to me is that you've got your signature capability within this. I know most places charge per signature, or you have to buy a pack of signatures and then use them. How about you guys? How does it work?
Sure.
So we've got two different types of approval in the platform today, which is a digital approval, which basically you send a request to a client, they are presented with the preview of the document to be approved, and they press reject or accept button, approve or reject. If they reject, we ask them for feedback as to why they're rejecting it, and then that's supplied to the person that requested the approval. And then we also have we're classing it as a lightweight or simple e-signature, and that is similar to the approval. They're presented with the document, they're asked for their signature, so they can put a squiggle on the screen, or they can type it or put an image up. But that signature isn't, unlike something like DocuSign or HelloSign, where you can position it on a document and send it to multiple people. That's not supported. We actually just append that signature along with the person's details, like IP address, location details and stuff, to the bottom of each page of the document that's been asked for approval. Now, that is quite adequate for things like self-assessment responses and payroll queries and stuff like that. But we have been asked for a more DocuSign type of experience, which we have just completed, which is due for launch next week. Which will allow, we're calling it our advanced e-signature feature, but basically it allows for positioning the signature on a document wherever, along with the attributed fields like title, company name, date. You can also ask for multiple signatories, whether they're consecutive or round robin, whichever. So they're both, that's in the process. Now, price-wise, we have different plans for Glasscubes depending on the kind of features that would be found most useful. As we talked about MTD on its own, there is no costs to that plan for the firms if they just want to take advantage of MTD functionality. If they're looking for the core product, the information request, then we charge for that in a slightly different way. So we don't charge the clients for that part of the tool. You can have however many clients you work with. We don't charge anything on transactionally. So, unlike other signing platforms where you have to pay per signature, it's all included. And we charge on a per user model. So depends on the plan, depends on the cost per user. The quantity of users also dictates the price per user. But to give you kind of an indicative pricing, the pricing could start from around £14 per user per month. So it needs to be a firm of a size that's got adequate clients or that would send adequate requests to obviously show a return on that. It's probably not suitable for your one-man bands, but if you have a firm of say 5+ people, it becomes a real time saver. And if you've got large groups of people or large groups of customers, and we work with firms with thousands or tens of thousands of customers, it becomes a game changer.
Interesting. So if somebody wanted to find out more about the pricing that would be applicable to them, is that available on your website, or is that a case of needing to get in touch?
No, it's all transparent. It's on our website. We've got a return on investment calculator on there, so they get a good idea based on the number of clients and internal team members what it would cost or what the investment would be. So it's
a cool idea.
There. But please, we're keen to speak to people. So we'd happily engage with anybody that's interested in knowing a little bit more.
Great stuff.
What would you say was your favourite feature about Glasscubes, though, guys?
But now Glasscubes, there's lots to go at. I thought you were going to ask me about MTD Assist, which is quite a simple tool. But I've got to say, on MTD Assist, I would say the feature I like most is probably the private messenger. And it's kind of one of those features that sort of sets us apart from other bridging software. I mean, there are a number of different bridging software, but we are absolutely firm first. So, it's not available consumer wise. You have to subscribe through a firm, and then it connects the firm to their clients using the private messenger, and it allows the firm to add value and for the client to feel that they have direct access to their trusted advisor. So that's a neat little tool that's been well received.
Yeah, for me, I think it's the information gathering thread of automation that gets put behind the request, because that is where, if we talk about outcome-led conversations for clients, that's the win that we see, earlier responses coming back in, which is the outcome firms are looking for, so they can move the work forward. So I like that one.
Yeah, it looks good. For me, looking at that, it's the AI assist. I'm really excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, well, that one's that's the kind of the new stuff that's going to be, that's going to explode. I think that'll be, that's
I don't
exciting.
know whether I feel scared or excited by that, really. But good stuff. I'd like to I know we're quite short on time now, but I'd like to understand about training on your software. How does that work? Do you train the accountants, I'm assuming, and not the clients?
100%. So if the product involved any kind of client training, it would fall apart. You can't have something that requires training on the client side. So it needs to be super intuitive, super simple, idiot-proof, basically. On the firm side, the platform is still very intuitive, but we have a fairly high-touch onboarding process, which I head up, which involves, on a client-by-client basis, looking at each service line within a business that may want to use the tool or tool set, and onboarding them accordingly. Now, that may just be MTD clients, even though there's no fee to the plan for firms, we still onboard them. They are still given a dedicated customer success manager. They have access to that customer success manager by phone, by email, in-app. We have a little private messenger in our app to our support team. And training wise, again, it can't involve sit down classroom led type training. So we distribute a couple of very short videos, which are 90 seconds to 2 minutes each, around to the team, which gives them all of the best practice in the way that they should be using the tool. But ultimately, we're onboarding the firm and a particular person within that firm. So we always have a project lead, which is our point of liaison, organizes the internal teams, and ultimately becomes the super user of the platform. So if any of the team members got questions about internal processes and such, they would go to that dedicated person, who's also often the administrator of the platform as well.
Mm.
And there's in-app chat support and ability for people to reach out anytime, UK office hours, to our support guys.
Great.
So anybody watching this now, how would you suggest the best way to get in touch with yourselves is?
So yes, obviously we've gone through MTD and we've gone through information requests. So if anybody is concerned about, clients not engaging with bookkeeping software or concerned about their bookkeeping fees and thinks this could potentially assist the type of client, or can see value in our information request tool helping, please get in touch, either through the website, or in the chat, or I believe this is also going to be out through some social channels or YouTube. You can reach out through there. But yeah, we are very approachable. Visit the website, reach out to us, and we'll be happy to talk to your situation and see how we can help.
Amazing. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. We have now reached our full hour, so it's left just to say thank you again for coming and joining us and showing us your product and telling us how to get in touch. Thank you everyone who was able to attend live and those catching up on record. We will see you in Accountants Therapy later. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.